Dean Martin owned Hollywood and Vegas. 30 million people watched him every week. The Rat Pack revolved around him, and every joke looked effortless. But in 1987, one phone call shattered everything. His son's death didn't just silence a legend, it broke the man behind the act. The story his son finally tells changes what we thought we knew. How did the king of cool lose everything in a moment? Dean Martin was more than a celebrity. He was a force of nature. By the late 1960s, his face was everywhere. Billboards, record covers, and every television set in America. The Dean Martin Show, which ran from 1965 to 1974, pulled in 30 million viewers every week. That kind of audience was unheard of, even by today's standards. Vegas casinos fought over him, offering contracts that dwarfed anyone else's paycheck. Ledgers from the Sands and the Riviera show he was the highest paid act in town, year after year. When Dean walked into a room, the mood changed instantly. People straightened up, hoping for a nod or a joke. Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. might have been stars, but Dean was the one everyone wanted to impress. On stage, he seemed half drunk, slurring punchlines with a glass in his hand. But that was part of the show. Most nights, it was apple juice in the tumbler, not whiskey. He liked the audience guessing, never letting them see how sharp he really was. His coolness was not an accident. It was carefully crafted and fiercely protected. The Rat Pack's wild stories, the effortless banter, the sense that nothing could touch him all built up the legend. Dean Martin became the standard every other entertainer tried to reach, but none ever really matched. At his peak, he made it look easy. The world believed he was unbreakable. Dean Paul Martin, Dino, stood apart from the rest of Dean's children almost from the start. Born November 17, 1951, Dino inherited his father's striking looks and easy charm, but he carved his own path. As a teenager, Dino climbed into the boxing ring and fought his way to a Golden Gloves title. On the tennis courts, he ranked among the best young players in the country, earning a national ranking that turned heads far beyond Hollywood. But Dino never settled for just one spotlight. He tried acting, landing a regular role on the NBC series Misfits of Science in 1985, and for a while it looked like his future might be on the screen. The real thrill for Dino, though, came from the cockpit. He joined the California Air National Guard and after years of training, became a captain with the 163rd Tactical Fighter Group. Dino piloted the F-4 Phantom II, a jet built for speed and danger, the same kind flown in Vietnam. His name appeared on the official 163rd Tactical Fighter Group roster in 1986, a point of pride for the entire family. Dean Martin, usually reserved when it came to showing emotion, couldn't help himself when it came to Dino's achievements. He would brag to friends that Dino had more guts than anyone in show business. For Dean, watching his son soar above the clouds was more thrilling than any standing ovation. Their bond grew deeper with every new milestone. Dino was the one who truly reached his father, the one who saw past the legend and found the man. In Dino, Dean saw the best of himself and the hope for something even greater. March 21, 1987 began as a standard training day for the California Air National Guard's 163rd Tactical Fighter Group. Captain Dean Paul Martin, known to family and friends as Dino, climbed into the cockpit of his F-4C Phantom II alongside his weapons system officer, Captain Ramon Ortiz. Both men were 35 years old. The weather over the San Bernardino Mountains was unforgiving, clouds stacked low, visibility nearly gone, and snow starting to fall. At 4 p.m., radar lost contact with their jet. There was no distress call, no warning, just sudden silence. The Phantom had slammed into the north face of Mount San Gorgonio, California's highest peak outside the Sierras, at 11,500 feet. The impact left no chance for survival. Back at March Air Reserve Base, controllers tried to reach Grizzly 72, the call sign for Dino's aircraft, but got nothing. Search and rescue teams were dispatched immediately, but the mountain was wrapped in ice and fresh snow. Helicopters circled, but rough weather forced them back. For days, no one could reach the wreckage. The wait was agonizing. Dean Martin received the call while preparing for an upcoming tour. Friends later remembered the moment as a kind of erasure, his face drained of color, his posture collapsing. He did not ask questions. He did not cry. He just stood there, frozen, while the news echoed in his mind. The loss was total. 2 families were shattered. The world had lost not just a promising pilot, but the son who had meant everything to Dean. From that moment, nothing in Dean Martin's life would ever be the same. Dino's funeral took place at Los Angeles National Cemetery beneath rows of white headstones and a sky heavy with spring clouds. Military honors were rendered, an American flag draped over the casket, a bugler's slow, wavering notes, and a volley of rifle shots echoing through the air. Dean Martin stood among family and servicemen, but his presence was a shadow of the man people once knew. Eyewitnesses remembered him as almost unrecognizable, pale, silent, eyes fixed on the ground, barely able to stand through the ceremony. He did not speak to the crowd or offer eulogies. Frank Sinatra, his closest friend for decades, stayed away at Dean's request. The absence spoke louder than words. For those who had watched the Rat Pack's brotherhood over the years, it was clear that nothing about this loss could be soothed by old friendships or shared stories. Days after the funeral, Dean was expected to rejoin Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. for the Together Again tour. The show went on, but Dean did not. He walked onto stage in Chicago and for the first time faltered. He missed cues, stumbled over lyrics, and at one point forgot the words to Everybody Loves Somebody. The audience, used to his playful improvisations, did not know what to make of it. Some thought he was joking. Backstage, the reality was plain. Dean was lost. He left the stage mid-song more than once, unable to finish. Newspapers the next morning noted his confusion and the audience's uneasy laughter. By April, after just a handful of shows, Dean told Sinatra he was done. He walked away from the tour, leaving Liza Minnelli to fill his spot. The tour was renamed The Ultimate Event. Dean returned to Beverly Hills, closing the door on his career. The man who once made every stage his own could no longer face the music. Richie Martin later wrote that his father's guilt never let up. Dean withdrew from everyone, spending long stretches alone at home in Beverly Hills. He stopped accepting invitations, turned down offers, and let friendships slip away. Music, once his greatest joy, became unbearable. Richie remembered his father saying he couldn't sing anymore, that every song reminded him of Dino. The house grew quiet, no rehearsals, no late-night piano, no humming from the den. Even Frank Sinatra, who tried to visit Dean in the hospital in 1995, was turned away. Dean refused to see him or anyone from the old days. Richie described it simply: his father's world ended when Dino's did. He carried the weight of that one decision, encouraging his son to fly until the very end. The man who once filled stadiums with laughter now lived in silence, haunted by what he could not change. Dean Martin's final years unfolded in quiet isolation behind the walls of his Beverly Hills home. Emphysema, brought on by decades of heavy smoking, left him short of breath and weak. In 1993, doctors diagnosed lung cancer, but he refused surgery or aggressive treatment, telling family he was ready to let go. Caregivers described him as distant and withdrawn, spending most days watching old westerns, eating simple meals, and rarely speaking. By late 1995, his health had faded to the point where he needed round-the-clock nursing care. On Christmas morning, December 25, 1995, Dean Martin died in his sleep at age 78 from acute respiratory failure. The funeral, held 2 days later, was private. Only family and a handful of close friends attended. Frank Sinatra, frail and visibly shaken, wept at the service. For the Rat Pack, it was the end of an era. For Dean, it was a final, quiet farewell. Today, celebrity facades still mask private pain. Dean Martin's silence after 1987 reminds us, even icons break when grief and guilt collide. The real legacy isn't the music, it's the reminder that no amount of fame shields us from loss. What is your take? Share your thoughts below.